Hello, everybody. Welcome to fucking Deadwood. It can be combative.
Welcome to fucking Dead. I'm very pleased because I have said, Tom, you should watch this 20 years ago. And all it took was you getting laid off.
Pretty much. Welcome to Anime Sickos podcast, where we talk about anime gaming, posting, and jobs. In this case, anime, specifically Deadwood.
But Deadwood is an anime about frontier jobs.
I always, in all of these things, do the funny joke of, like, it's not... What if I made some funny justification for why this thing, which is clearly not anime, was actually anime? But for Deadwood, we actually have a fucking...
meat on the bone.
Yeah, there's something there. So the reason that we had to do this Deadwood episode, obviously we were gonna, because I was like, Deadwood, Joe loves Deadwood. I was watching Deadwood finally. I'm like, I love Deadwood. This is like Severance season 1 all over again. I can't believe I missed this show. It's so good. But then when we made our little Deadwood game, the proof of concept game, a lot of people were like, what is Deadwood? And I didn't think that made any sense because, like, I'm just looking at the facts as I see them. And, like, Deadwood is playing, like, 10% of every day. And I know that because I know how many hours in a day I'm up. And I was watching 2 episodes of Deadwood a day. So I just don't understand how anyone, given the facts of the case, didn't understand what Deadwood is. But we're here to explain. Joe, what's Deadwood? Explain Deadwood.
Deadwood is a frontier town in this fictional land called America, where the slurs are similar, but not the same. So what the show is about the unincorporated Dakota territories outside the Black Hills, where there was a bunch of gold and prospecting. So the town of Deadwood sort of pops up as this sort of bustling frontier, I don't know, backwater? What would you call it?
It starts out, as like a true, like, very close to being Meteor City, the city from the dump from Hunter x Hunter. When our, we'll get into this, that there's no one protagonist, but in the first episode, there are protagonists. And, like, when they get to Deadwood, their first thing is, like, I sure hope we can, like, put up a canvas tent. Like, it would really...
Without someone killing us? Yes. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But, like, by the end of the series, it, like, is becoming, like, a legitimate small city.
Al gets, like, a nice balcony on his office.
Yeah. So here's the thing about Deadwood, is I mentioned that in the beginning there's protagonists. Here's what it's really about, and here's why it is an anime, or more specifically a manga. That sort of, general overview of the plot that Joe gave, like, it's about the town. It's like, well, that's very vague. Like, does it ever get more specific than that? No, it does not. The plot is a very, very low priority in the show's estimation. What it's really about is just, like, what if there's a lot of side characters? Like, what if we just made a lot of side characters, like from manga, and we just had them pair up in various different pairs over and over, almost like a tournament, except instead of fighting, they just talk. Except sometimes they do fight, and it's incredible. The answer being, like, you would get a show that fucking, like, absolutely whips fucking sack.
The point of this show is dialogue. The plot doesn't matter in the sense that, like, the historical forces of what happened are known. The town fucking burns down. Like, this is a thing you can look up.
Yeah.
And then we also know, because we live in current day, it obviously gets incorporated into the United States, which is one of the, like, main concerns, which is, like, how we have this town where, like, you can kill people and it's fine because we all agree that if you kill someone for a reason, it's fine.
Yeah.
The problem is Uncle Sam doesn't love that. And he's on his way with a bunch of scary forms.
Yeah. And we also know that, like, Uncle Sam fucking wins the boot of capital that destroys these organic, self-determined communities, has crushed them all. Like Deadwood loses hard, as did we all. But, like, it doesn't matter because, like, what matters is the fucking dialogue. I have here so W. Earl Brown, who is an actor who plays one of the supporting characters and who was also in the writer's room in addition to acting, went on a tear about a year ago on Reddit, just saying Deadwood facts to people.
If I was in Deadwood, that's all I would do. I would just,
Yes.
hey, do you want me to tell you how the dust machine worked? You stood in front of it, you got real dusty.
But so Deadwood is mostly the brainchild of the creator and showrunner David Milch. And this is what W. Earl Brown has to say about David Milch. Dave was always 2 steps ahead of me. He did not work with any outlines. Plot was a secondary or tertiary concern of his. Language and how its usage reveals character was the primary concern.
That tracks. Yes, this is the show where they say cocksucker all the time. But, like, I cannot emphasize that, like, yeah, it's kind of funny. But what's actually very funny is that you have to listen to the show that says cocksucker and then also be like, yeah, so all the other words are so good.
Cocksucker is a great word.
They
really put a lot into it.
It's just like it becomes a pronoun, just like a general. It's like a new steades.
And there's there is we can a little ahead of ourselves, but I just gotta say there's a Chinese character, Mr. Wu, because there are, as a Chinese, being the Old West, there's a lot of Chinese immigrants, and there's sort of like the boss of the Chinese in Deadwood is Mr. Wu, and he is in an alliance with Al, who we'll get to. Al is one of the main characters who we love, but Mr. Wu doesn't speak English, and at one point he has something really important to tell Al, and the only English word that he can like remember to like try to get across this important thing is cocksucker, and he says it so many times, and at the end Al is just like, I'm so fucking sorry I taught you that word. So good. So okay, if you hear about Deadwood, chances are you're gonna get told, people always say this, they're going to get told, it's like it's Shakespearean. This dialogue, it's like Shakespearean. It's like Shakespeare, they say. To me, I want to push back a little bit. I think this is not quite accurate and a little bit misleading. And the main reason is that Shakespearean as a term has a stink on it for most people. It is like when people
it means sucks. It shouldn't mean sucks.
Yeah,
but like it's used to mean like, oh, you know how this is boring and you don't want to get through it.
It's like you have to have a degree from NASA to understand what they say anon instead of before, and it's just like that makes most people just like start fucking crying. And even like me, who is like a highfalutin English major guy, like if I am watching a Shakespeare play, if I'm hearing the dialogue and it's not like a play that I've like recently read the text of, half the time I'm not going to understand what the words are. And like
there's like literally a cognitive like you wouldn't watch Shakespeare when you're like tired.
Yes. And you wouldn't watch Deadwood when you're tired either, but you could watch it when you're a little tired, which you couldn't do you can't do for Shakespeare. Objectively, it was a show made for people from today. 2004, but that's close enough. Like, they do speak in a dialect of English that is not fucking very far away from what we speak. And Shakespeare, they do speak in a dialogue of English that is very far from what we speak, and thus there's like a kind of a stigma there.
Also, it's stilted. Like, there's like this layer. The Shakespearean sort of syntax is just like, even if you're used to it, you are doing a little bit of decoding. Deadwood sounds conversational, even though the writing is amazing and everything. Like, it's what was that? I didn't catch that. Everything is very clear.
Yes, and like obviously in Shakespeare's time, his language was like everyone's gonna fucking understand this, obviously, but like that's just that's gonna be the case with Deadwood in 600 years. That's not the fault of the writing. It's just that when people say Shakespearean to mean really, really good, it also includes a bunch of other connotations that do not apply to Deadwood. The reason that people do say a Deadwood's dialogue is Shakespearean, and this is the accurate part, this is the part that's undeniably true that makes them say it over and over, is that it is a very, very rare thing in the modern day for a piece of art to take specific effort, and in this case, like the most effort. Like, this is the main thing that the show is trying to do. To use language in a beautiful way for its own sake. Like, you can have great writing that is not in itself gorgeous. Like, The Sopranos is great writing, but like no one on that show is like saying a beautiful thing because they're all fucking dumb as shit. The main goal of Deadwood is like is it not wonderful that we humans have created this thing that allows us to express beauty into the air?
And the goal of Deadwood is to get everybody doing that. You get all the guns lined up and firing.
I mean, this is the quote that everyone says every time someone mentions Deadwood. It's like the stock one. It's kind of overused. However, what can you fucking say? Like this, it's for a reason. Like, hear this, and how can you resist the show it comes from? My bicycle conquers boardwalk and quagmire with aplomb. Those who doubt me suck cock by choice.
So, it's amazing. It's one of the... I can't wait to return to this because you identified something about this plot when the bicycle thing happens that I did not realize, which is very funny. So Deadwood has a power system. It does. The power system is who can have the highest rhetoric stat. That's the power system.
Yep.
And what we just read is a really good feat because he turned the word cocksucker into a whole paragraph. That's something you can only do if you are a high-level Deadwood guy. And the guy who does this, he's like a TN. Like, he's fine.
Yes. It's so funny because, like, you were like, wait till Tom Nuttall rides his bike, dude. Oh, that's the best scene. I'm like, okay, who's Tom Nuttall? And you're like, he's the guy who runs the bar. I'm like, Al runs the bar. And you're like, the other bar. And I'm like, oh, I realize I've seen him in a couple episodes, but he made no impression because he's just a guy who's, like, standing behind the other bar serving
He hasn't got a
drinks.
bike yet.
Yes, and then, like, when he gets his bike, he's, like, Super Saiyan, and it's like, Tom Nuttall is the most important character in the show. This is the greatest acting performance ever. It's so easy to say, fuck you. Like, anyone who doesn't like my bicycle is a cocksucker. It is...
Those who doubt me suck cock by choice. And he's doing, like, a stump speech in a bar, and everyone's like, yeah! Like,
if you sucked cock by under duress,
you didn't get tricked.
no one can say anything to you. You had to do what you had to do. But if you chose to suck cock, then sir, you're a cocksucker.
One quick thing before we get into a little more specifics. This is a great example of what we mean by the ensembleness of the show.
Yes.
So, like, this B or C plot is, like, Tom Nuttall, who is this tavern owner, is going to ride an old-timey bike, and everyone's like, you're going to eat shit and fall over. And, like, the entire town, it feels like every single human being in the town, like, I mean, like, literally every human, not like the actors' characters, is plugged into this bet. And that only works when you're able to capture a sense of ensemble and, like, energy for a scene and sort of a show. And, like, it works because, like, that's all Deadwood is. It's so fucking funny because it's just like, I won't go into specifics, but there's a very serious A plot that's happening. So just this happening in the back when Columbo is trying to find something out is top shelf shit.
I'll just fucking say it. I'll do it real quick because, like, I don't want to lose this. Like, if we forget and don't come back to it. So one of the characters is the sheriff, and he's trying to prove that a guy murdered his brother. Like, it's very obvious that he did, but he's just trying to find some proof. And, like, the big, like, gotcha is when he says to this guy, why weren't you watching, like, where were you during Tom Nuttall's bike ride? Why weren't you watching his ride?
And did you not see him conquer Boardwalk and Quagmire? Why were you not doing that?
Like, the idea that someone would not be watching Tom Nuttall's bike ride is, like, so unthinkable that, like, you had to have been using it as cover for murder. And he was!
Yeah.
He was! Like, that was the plan. It's like, everyone in the town's gonna be watching the bike ride. Perfect time to do a murder. Okay. We've set it up. Deadwood is the fun language show with an ensemble cast where the plot doesn't matter. That's all true. That's set up. Now let's get into the main reason we're all here. Ian McShane is Al Swearingen.
What a role. Just one of the TV roles of all time. Al Swearingen is a fun character. Just wonderful. So when people say, like, a character is funny, they usually mean, like, oh, the character's on screen and he's doing things that make you laugh. What?
Yes.
Is
like,
so
Homer Simpson
wonderful.
is funny, but he's not. If Homer Simpson try to tell you a joke, it would be bad because he's too stupid.
Like, Al is actually, and knows he is, funny. Like, but he does not want laughter. Like, he literally is just like this machine that runs a whorehouse, and he is Mr. Logistics.
Yes. So, he starts out the series and like you go to the town and he's basically a crime boss who runs the town. He owns the saloon, which is also a whorehouse. Well, all the saloons are whorehouses. And he does crime. He has like henchmen who do violent crime in order for him to make money.
He gets someone killed for a gold claim. Like, that's what we're dealing with.
Like, you think to yourself, this is a big villain. I hate this guy. And at the beginning, yes, he is. But like the thing about him is that like he's just smarter than everyone else in the show. Like,
and
he
not
really
like in a
is.
Mary Sue way. Like, it just is. Okay, it's very clear that like he's the only one who is like able to think 2 steps down.
Yes.
There's a smallpox plague, as you might imagine.
Yes.
And he's literally like the only one who was just like, what if we do 2 steps down the road?
Like, when the smallpox got, like, there's a guy with smallpox who shows up, and I'm like, oh my God, I see how this is going to play out plot-wise. And, like, there's going to be an awful plague in the town. And Joe's like, no, not really. I'll make sure they get vaccines right away.
Like, people get sick and die, but, like, it is under control. Like, that's the thing. It's the CDC... could learn a few things. Like, it's
like there are big lines where everyone's going and getting their vaccine that Al got. And again, I'm glad you brought up the smallpox shit because it segues into like the ultimate example of like Al just being the funniest guy. This is one of the rare times he tells a joke and he's like wants to get a laugh because he's like, oh, this is good. Which is, they are sort of doing a investigation. Like, are we sure that there's smallpox in the camp? Because like there's a smallpox guy.
Who got sick after being by who?
Yeah, and they think there's this one guy who has smallpox, and they're like, when did he have it? Like, when? And they talked to one of the prostitutes that he slept with, or rather was going to, and they're like, did he have smallpox sores on his prick? And she says, I don't know. He never took it out because he only wanted me to see it once it was hard. And Al says, now that's what you call a mistake of youth. And he's got this.
It's like not smile. A joke, though. It's just like a knife stab in the middle of this conversation. It's so... it's a writerly show because it's funny and it doesn't look at you like, aren't I funny? It is just a sucker punch.
That's what you call a mistake of youth. Ian McShane as Al, it is insane to me that there was a time where you could turn on your television set and see a new episode of The Sopranos with James Gandolfini giving one of the acting performances that's ever been done. And then, on the same night even, you watch Ian McShane giving one of the acting performances that has ever been done. And it's just like... Al is so... Like, there are a number of scenes at generally the end of episodes when Al is... getting his dick sucked by one of his employees.
There are some monologues as you get snuffed off. That happens.
And he just gives these monologues, and like one, it is very funny that there is a head wiggling up and down at the bottom of the frame.
He's also like monologuing and telling her to slow down. Like, you got a stagecoach to catch? Hold on. It's just Jesus.
But like, this is where it's. As stupid as this is, that there are dick-sucking monologues, like Ian McShane like makes an absolute meal of these. They are incredible to watch, and they deepen his character so much because this is one of the few times where he's able to talk about something other than how do I manage the circumstances that are besetting me right the fuck now. He's constantly reacting to bullshit occurring around him and trying to maintain his power and independence despite entropy. This is one of the few times he can just talk about something else. And he talks about himself, and it's like you learn so much about Al and why he is the way he is from his dick-sucking monologues. Like the fact that, like, well, he was a child prostitute himself. He was an orphan, and he and the other orphans were prostituted out, and then all of his orphan siblings got sold to different whorehouses all around the world. Oh, and that's why he's so ruthless. That's why he has so little opinion of his fellow man. Okay, that's why. Oh, and that's why he hates the U.S. government and authority. I get it. It's incredible, and he's gotten this while he's taken fucking interrupts his own monologue to be like, why so much drool?
Yes.
There's one part where he's there's one part where he's doing this, and he's like talking about, like, because something recently happened to him where he was helpless, and he's like, I hate that feeling of being held down. I've always hated it. And the prostitute's like, me too. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's like, when they hold me down, I don't like that either. And he's just like, oh shit, I do that to you when I pull your hair, don't I? And she's like, no, Al, because he's the boss. And he's like, oh, well, thank you for fibbing. And it's like, I mean, because he is an ass. Like, he's deepened and humanized, and there are much worse villains that show up, but we do always have to remember, like, he is an asshole. Like, he does commit a lot of murder, and
he is a whore master. Like,
yes.
Like that is his thing.
He's not nice to the whores. I'm sorry to say it.
So, moving on, as far as just screen time, I would say Seth Bullock is next.
Yep. He's the one who
he's
in our game. Yes, he's justified. He's Timothy Oliphant. In our game, you ride with him to set up a hardware store. So he is like the angriest man who ever lived. And you know how they say, like,
yell. He can't yell.
Oh. So, like, there's levels of anger. Like, you get peeved, and then you get angry, and you sort of get red and loud, and that's pretty angry.
And then teed off.
And if you get, like, angrier than that, you stop being red, and you just get, like, bone white. And you stop pounding your fist and stomping and yelling, and just become perfectly still. That's him, like, 100% of the time. It's so fucking funny.
The thing about his character is, I forget which town they came from, but he used to be the sheriff. And the thing is, Deadwood does not have a sheriff because there's not a government, and he is disillusioned with sheriffing because why wouldn't you be? Yeah,
you see the worst of your fellow man. They resent you. You constantly have to whisper full of rage at them. He didn't want to do it no more because he is joined up with his friend Saul Starr, who's Jewish, and they don't let him forget it.
That's a wonderful way to put it. Oh, there's an election later, and like the other guy's stump speech is just like, he's Jewish, right?
They did weird stuff to his dick with their Jew knife. So they go to open a hardware store. They want to open up a legitimate business selling pickaxes and pans to the prospectors and never have to be the sheriff again. And they get there, and due to Al, there is a lot of crime and nonsense going on in the town. He ends up being the sheriff. He's constantly just like,
yeah, he's angry. He's a quiet avatar of rage. He really good rage whispering.
Yes.
In the category of rage whispering, this is a great performance. The tension with his character is that, like, he doesn't want to be the sheriff, and as you might imagine, as the town legitimizes and becomes like a government, they will need a sheriff. So when Al's like, I know a guy who actually has some experience with that. I think he was always saying he wanted to do it forever, right? And then, and like the dynamic is just like basically Al like trying to hand him the badge and him being like, eat shit.
Yes. It's so funny. Al's dynamic with everyone is it's variations on a theme. When Al first meets someone, he tries to do something to them, which is an unforgivable crime, which is to say, have them killed, have them defrauded out of a large amount of money.
The relationship always starts off on a rocky foot. It's rough.
And eventually that person who hates Al encounters a situation where there's an intractable problem. Some circumstances are occurring that this is going to really fuck up everything. And Al comes to them and presents the perfect plan. And they have to just like grit their teeth and be like, whatever you say, boss.
Like, I know you killed me or trying to. Like, we both know this. But
and he's like,
that's a good plan.
He's like, at the time, your death was what was best for the camp. I wasn't able to pull it off, so I let it be. Now, there is a better use for you for the good of the camp. And that's the thing. He always talks about, like, the good of the camp. And, like, he's right. He's right. He's still selfish, but he is right. He is just smart. Like, when I say he's the smartest one, he is smart enough to know that having a camp, a town, is going to become a town. He knows this. Having a town that is self-determined and is not beholden to government interests far away that don't understand what the town needs, that are just going to extract resources from it, is what is best for everyone. And he is going to be able to most selfishly thrive in that independent, self-determined community.
He was also one of the first people in the camp.
Yes.
Like, they were the original settlers, I guess is the weird word, but yeah.
I wanted 1 second. I just want to talk about Saul Star real quick. He doesn't really do anything plot-wise ever, which is the case for a great number of the characters in this ensemble, which is nothing against that. But
he plays a very vital role. There are people like this in life, and they're very important that you recognize their behavior and their role in the great cosmos. And
yes.
Saul's job is to just, like, give life a really good college try, and then, like, everyone being like, you stupid motherfucker, you piece of shit, and he's just like, okay, and then that's him. And there are countless people fighting this fight, and his character is for you if you are that person.
Like, if you're just like, gosh, I'm just trying to get by, I'm trying to have a good time, you're Saul Star. Because Saul Star's best friend, Seth Bullock, all he wants to do with Seth is have a good time and run a hardware store. And every single day, Seth gets infuriated by something, storms out, comes back. Saul is like, hello.
I restocked this shelf.
And all that tension that Seth's been holding in explodes out. He's like, what the fuck are you talking to me about stock for? He bites his fucking head off. And Saul's just like, gosh, Seth. Anyway, and moves. And then, like, later on, Saul's girlfriend, Trixie, who is Al's top whore, and he I think was in love with her. Like, he slept in bed with her every night.
It was his main squeeze. It was like the real deal.
She falls in with Saul Star, and this is one of the humanizing things. Like, Al being like a person and not a Satan, is he just like, he knows she is happier with him and is like, all right, go on. And every time she shows up, he says, "How's the Jew fucking?"
The weather. It's so funny. He also builds her like a secret fuck tunnel.
Oh yeah, yes, because like Saul buys a house. I forget why. There's some reason that, like, for the purposes of like some sort of fraud.
Oh, they have to be residents to be mayor. They're living in the hardware store, and that's not a house.
Yes, yeah, okay. So, and like they want to install Saul as mayor. So they give him a house, and it adjoins a hotel, and Al pays the hotel guy to make a secret tunnel so that Trixie can live in that room and pop over, and they can live together without it seeming untoward that they're living together unmarried. And you get what a nice thing.
You see the shitty heart of gold we're talking about here. It's like, this is scummy. They're bad, but like there are in the turd there are gems that should be polished.
Yeah. And I'm getting off that. We
got to get through more people.
But the reason I bring up Trixie and Saul is, so Trixie is very sort of like focused on like justice and what should be done and people being treated right, and that never fucking occurs. And when that doesn't occur, she gets so angry. She gets so fucking upset about the injustice of the world, and she can't stand to think that people are being treated incorrectly, and that no one's doing anything to fix this problem. And her way to deal with these feelings is to become the angriest, meanest fucking person and just say the most hurtful things she possibly can to anyone in earshot. And who's in earshot most of the time? Her boyfriend, Saul Star, who she is constantly saying the cruelest things on earth to. And he's always like, golly, dear,
He's just waiting on the other side of the sex tunnel for her to come out and yell at him and then go away. Like that's his life. He's very funny.
There's one scene where he's like in bed reading. She pops out of the sex tunnel and it gives him like 5 minutes of the cruelest fucking treatment anyone's ever had. And she sort of runs out of energy. And this whole time he sort of had a look of like, oh golly, on his face. And at the end, as she sort of is like, want some pussy? And he's like, yeah! It's great. It's great.
It's childlike in like simplicity a little bit. So that's Saul Star. That is the business partner of the eventual sheriff. Next up, we have Alma, New York.
The New York woman.
Alma. So she is a rich woman from New York who hates it in Deadwood because she's here because her husband is doing business. Claims business.
Yeah, he wants to get big time gold, and she also did not want to marry him, so she hated him from the jump when they were living in New York. But now she's in Deadwood.
Yes. So as we have said earlier, Al's way to find out about someone is like, what are they doing? Well, if I kill them, I would increase my position. So he arranges to get her husband killed. So they can sell or buy the gold claim or whatever.
I think it was that like the gold claim was a dud, and they were gonna, because he's an idiot, they were gonna trick him to thinking it was a great gold claim, and he'd pay a super high price for it. Then they'd kill him, and they'd buy it back from his widow for a super low price because she's wanting to get out of town because she hates Deadwood. Classic grift.
So she is also addicted to opium.
Yeah.
She takes it in a tincture. She's not, or is it laudanum? I don't laudanum.
Laudanum. Well, that's just what they called opium in the old days. I don't know.
Yeah. So her thing is she's like the rich widow who is like doped out. She's very sweaty and in bed a lot initially. But her character is interesting because she fucking hates the town, man. So when you see her be put into situations where she is throwing in with Ale, the guy who got her husband killed, and it's like not like, oh, this is a reluctant thing, but like they are actually agreeing and are eye to eye. That's what makes the show kind of cook. Yeah. Because also Alma's nice because everyone is like a dirty frontiersman, and you get this sort of like,
she's never dusty.
She's never dusty. She takes issue with the things in the camp that no one else cares about, like how everyone shits everywhere. That sort of thing. So she's good for that perspective because otherwise it's a rough and tumble town.
To go back to when she finally throws her lot in with Al, not only did Al kill her husband, which she knows, it's so clear.
And she's like whatever on.
Yeah, well that's just like that's more of a principle thing. Like she did not like her husband. The only reason she married her husband is because her awful father, who it is implied did some stuff to her as a child, who she hates a lot. Her awful father basically sold her to her husband's family for money to pay off his debts. Like her father comes to Deadwood and is like, I heard you have a gold claim, honey. Can I have some gold?
Yeah, he sniffs a payday. Like he's just like, oh, all right.
She's like, didn't all your debts get paid off when I married my awful husband? And he's like, well, yeah, those debts, but I've got new debts, honey. Anyway, so she has like adopted a daughter because one of Al's big crimes in the beginning of the season was a family of Norwegians was leaving Deadwood because their gold claim didn't pan out, and they had a bunch of valuables on their wagon. And Al was like, henchmen, kill them and take the valuables. And there was one child who was alive, and Al tried to have her assassinated to prevent her from saying
because the kid knows who killed her family. They're the people in the town.
Yeah, because it was made to look like Indians did it, but it was not. And so he's like, I got to kill the witness to shut her up. It doesn't work. Eventually, it becomes clear that she's not going to talk to the kid, and it's like whatever. And this orphan girl is basically taken in by Alma, and eventually they do say like, this is my daughter, and she's like, you are my mommy. Like it is like a little family, like this is legitimate. And the whole time she knows Al tried to have her daughter
it's not
killed.
Ambiguous. She understands cause and effect, but the circumstances, again, you still got to throw in with Al.
Yeah. God, we got to get through so many characters. We got to go Al's main guy, Dan. Dan is like his main henchman. Like if we need someone killed, He says, Dan, kill this person. And Dan's like, I'll do it, sir. And he does it easily.
He's an interesting shape for a henchman. I don't mean like he's not strong. It's just like he's built like, is it 23 that becomes the super henchman? Or is it 24? Who dies in Venture Brothers?
21 becomes the super henchman.
He's kind of built like 21 before.
I mean, like, this is like how a real unbeatable henchman would look. Where he's just especially like so fucking thick.
Frontier times.
Yeah.
Like his armor is so high because of his fat.
Like if he had all the same amount of muscle that he has and no fat and thus looked like a superhero, he would lose every fight because he just has 50% less fucking momentum on all of his moves.
So this guy is who kills Alma's husband at Al's behest. Mm-hmm. He is the guy that generally does like the bloodier stuff for Al.
The thing that's so great about this character is that he could just easily be like, you know, basically like a glorified extra. Like he doesn't say much and he just does, you know, action scenes when he needs to kill. Is that like the relationship between Al and Dan is like adorable. Like it's so precious because like Dan very clearly thinks that like
when he sees Al, he gets hearts in his eyes.
Yeah. Like I am a low down chump. My life was going to be me doing I was going to be bushwhacking all my life until I caught a stray bullet. That was all that was there for me, and there was no opportunities elsewhere until Al saw something in me, and now I'm second in command to the most powerful man in Deadwood. Oh boy. And like when Al gets a new henchman, like Dan gets very jealous.
Yeah, yes, in a toddler way.
Yeah, like Al likes me best though, right?
There's this very sweet, I think it must be the second or third season. I don't remember the specific plan they are hatching, but there's a very sweet moment where Al is telling everybody like what they're going to be doing. Dan is not mentioned. And then afterwards Dan is like, "Hey, man, like what about me?" He's like, "Dude, you know I need you for this other thing." Like it's just like, you know, you're my dude.
Yeah, it's like, "Al, you freezing me out." And it's like, "No, Dan, this is just something that you're not suited for. I need you in my pocket in case something really bad happens and I need my best guy." And he's like, "I'm your best guy?" It's great. Oh my God. We got to get through so many fucking characters. We got to talk about E.B. Farnham, the Worm.
There's a type of character that Tom and I call the Worm, which is just any character that is supposed to just be like subservient and disgusting. And
he wiggles in the dirt.
Yes, and of that type of character, which fiction has countless of them, EB's got to be at the top of the heap because he is wormy with a little bit of extra sauce, and I'll get into it. So his role in the town is he owns the only hotel, so he's important because people do need to stay in town.
And he's important for in terms of screen time because every single person will need to walk past him and allow him to say some annoying shit to them, and they will go ugh, and have to respond to E.B. Farnham the Worm.
And also, as the owner of the hotel, he's up in people's shit and getting information and just being a weasel.
Yeah, and thus he is valuable to Al, so he's constantly going over to Al and telling him, he's like one of Al's henchmen. He tells him the news, and Al gives him some fucking chores every once in a while to do.
His job is to be Buggy the Clown.
I don't know if that's quite accurate, because one of the hallmarks of Buggy the Clown is despite being a worm who sucks at everything, he constantly fails upward.
He becomes mayor.
Yeah.
Well, what do you
but that
mean?
doesn't mean anything.
But he's a wonderful worm. He's just a character that is just, it makes you disgusted to see him talk. Like it should evoke that emotion in you, and he does.
They mention at the very near the beginning it's like, "Sir, you look damp." And he's like, "I sweat more than usual than normal people do." And like he is constantly damp. He also, so this is a great example of like language used for its own sake, is that like if there is a character who does speak in sort of a real Shakespearean way, it is EB, because he wants to be like a city father. Like he wants to be important. I have the hotel. Everyone has to respect me. I work for Al. Al respects me. He obviously knows deep down that no one does, but he wants to, like, he's like, "I'll fake it till I make it." And so like he talks in the most ridiculous, pretentious way of all the characters. And also, he's constantly wearing these, like, he's wearing the shirt from Seinfeld, this pirate shirt. Like, that's
but
his
it's
shirt.
muddy, and because he's been living in it for years. He looks like shit, to be clear, but he's like the most regalia.
Yeah,
it's just filthy.
He's so, yeah, and like,
and as he becomes mayor and moves up, so like he becomes like more dressed, but while remaining disgusting.
So the reason he becomes mayor is Al realizes, like, there's going to be, like, our days as a frontier town out on our own are coming to an end. There will be United States officials coming here. And if they see a town that knows how to handle itself and has order and has the things you need to make a town work, well, they're going to be more likely to be like, it's all set up for us. Come into the U.S. and we're not going to change a thing. And if we have already people in seats of government, they'll say, why have new elections? You're already here. And so
this is very smart of Vale. This is like an example of like how he's the only one who understands the concept of like next week.
Yes. Fucking yes. And Evie is just like, I'd like to be mayor. And he just sort of hits the table and goes, mayor, and points at him. And you can tell that Evie thought this would be like a big, like, how am I going to get them to agree to let me be mayor? And Al just gives him mayor. And it becomes very clear that, like, that means nothing. There's no mayor work you're doing, and no one respects you anymore either. And he's so sad.
Okay, who else we got?
We were talking Farnham. We got to talk Richardson. Richardson is Farnham's Farnham. He is the cook at the hotel. He's an old man who looks like a cartoon of an old coot prospector.
He's in the jammies.
He's in his jammies 24/7, and his main purpose is so that Farnham can have somebody who he is 100% much better than and can look down on, because Farnham can look down on no one, because everyone agrees this is a revolting little creature. Like, he's referred to as a rodent man. Alma always, when Alma has to refer to Farnham's restaurant, she always says, like, and that little man's ridiculous restaurant.
She hates it because it's silly. That's the biggest crime. And the fun dynamic, of course, with the Richardson thing is, like, he's actually, like, smarter than Farnham. Richardson is, like, basically, like, doesn't talk or do anything, but, like, you get little insights that, like, oh, he's actually got, like, a better brain than Farnham.
Yeah. Well, that's not a hard thing to do, but, like, he only talks like this very rarely when asked to speak by Farnham. But, like, at one point, like, the newspaper comes in with some, like, big news, and he, like, runs to read it, and he's like, I can't wait. And it's like, fucking Richardson can read?
Yeah.
Also, later, like, a real chef comes to town, and she, like, takes him on as her assistant and, like, teaches him how to cook well. And, like, respects him as, like, my assistant.
Loves it. Or he loves it. Like, he is
they
so
both
excited to learn. Yeah.
And as EB's situation gets worse, which it eventually, obviously it does, because the entire town situation gets worse, and as the guy who's on the fucking bottom, that just means there's more people, there's more shit on top weighing down on him, pushing him into the mud like a worm. And so he starts lashing out at Richardson more, and this is one of the greatest lines of all time. He just says this to Richardson because he's, like, walking by, and he's like, hi, Mr. Farnham, and he's like, I gotta lash out. And
I have to zing this fucker.
Could you have been born, Richardson, and not egg hatched, as I've always assumed?
Last week you were like, you hit that line, and I'd forgotten about it. I was like, egg hatched is so... Are you egg hatched? Can you say that at work? Excuse me. Are you egg hatched?
There's another one on that same token. I'm just looking at the list of quotes. I imagine the pool that spawned you, Richardson. I am filling it with rocks. I am holding shut your gills to keep you from taking in air. And, like, as he's saying that, Richardson's looking like, no, not my pool.
Yeah, he's worried. I love that pool.
God damn. Okay, we gotta talk about Tolliver. Oh, so Tolliver is the first of a pattern that occurs in Deadwood, which is we start off with Al, and you think Al is the worst guy. Oh my God, he's constantly visiting such trauma and crime and evil on our beloved heroes. I hate
And then
Al.
a wagon shows up and a new guy gets off, and it's like, Al's the Pope.
Yeah, like Al. Like, I love Al. What would we do without Al? He's the heart and soul of this town. He's the only thing keeping the evil at bay.
I love how he only kills the right people.
Yeah, and when he fails to kill the wrong people and it becomes clear that you shouldn't kill this person, he's like, my bad, and doesn't try again. So the first new villain who comes up is Cy Tolliver, who is just like, you'd think is going to be like Mirror Al. Like, he is also setting up a saloon and whorehouse, which Al gets furious at. He's like, fuck, competition. And like the gem, Al's saloon, is like kind of like rough and tumble. Like, it's like a frontier saloon. And this new guy, Cy's
fancy.
Yeah, the Bella Union looks nice. It is high end. It's high class. They have felt craps tables that look like they're from now. They're so beautiful. And he would and fucking Cy wears a cool suit. He wears like Farnham clothes, but they're good.
Yeah.
And fucking Cy Tolliver is Powers Booth, who, if you've seen Tombstone, he's Curly Bill Brocious. He fucking, like, man, oh man, he's so good at just being like, he's got the rumbliest voice of all time. It's so rumbly. We come back to it. You think he's like, this is like Mirror Al. Like, they're going to be rivals, and they're going to be like the Clash of the Titans. Cy Tolliver and Al Swearingen. It becomes very clear that Tolliver is eviler than Al because he is too stupid.
He lacks vision. So, like, rather than, you know how I said Al can like look into next week by virtue of understanding time. Tolliver can only do 3 days out, and the way he makes up for that gap is he's just insanely cruel.
He's so much crueler than Al. He has so much less vision. He cannot see beyond the reach of his own arms. The thing about Tolliver is that his like talent, the thing he would be really good at if he didn't try to like get Peter Principled above his perfect job title, is con man. Like, he's a great con man.
Absolutely.
Like, the cruel thing that he does is there are these two con children who come to town to swindle the saloons. And one of them is Kristen Bell, and it's hilarious. And because he is a great con man, he sort of fucking figures it all out right away. He knows exactly what their game is. And his thing is like, we got to teach them a lesson. We got to show everybody. We got to put up appearances. We got to show everybody that no one steals from us. And so he and his two best pals at the saloon take them up to a room, and Cy fucking tortures and murders them in a way that is so cruel that his two best friends who work with him are like, Cy, I hate you and need to get out of here today. Like, yeah. I feel ill every time I see you. And he's just like, oh, you know, that was just a show. You know, I hate doing that. It's just we have to show people. And like, they point out like, Cy, we did that in a locked room with no one else here. Like,
we're not going to send people in to look at this. Yeah, it's a really harrowing scene.
But it has one of the greatest fucking lines of all time that makes you laugh out loud, which is Cy wants someone to walk to his left, and the way he says that is, come over here to what the Dagos call my sinister side.
So funny. When you started watching it, I was like, hey, so like, I don't know what season that is, but Powers Booth is going to say the following words. You need to be ready.
So the thing that's great about Tolliver, I love this, is that there are times, it's generally when he is trying to be sort of magnanimous and let the people in his orbit go and do their own thing. He'll be like, I'm doing the right thing. You know, I'm going to let this, like, I'm not no cruel taskmaster. Like, you don't have to stay here. And he's very like, yes, no, I will. Yes. Like, the main thing is that Joni, his main squeeze, his top prostitute, who he's like in love with, she's
also
disgusted.
A lesbian.
Yeah, she's disgusted by him due to the fucking killing that he did and the torturing that she had to watch. So he's like, if you don't like me, you know what? You can start your own whorehouse and you can be the madam. And I'll bankroll you. Like, I'll give you the startup costs, and you won't even have to answer to me. I'll never even come by unless you ask. Like, never, ever. And she's like, golly, Cy, that's a pretty good deal. And then when she goes to do it, he's like, all right, see you ladies later. And as it becomes clear that like she is actually leaving, and it's the switch is so good. The switch is so good. He's again, it's like when Trixie starts getting cruel. Like something is happening that I don't like. So the thing I'm gonna do is become the cruelest, meanest, and he like gets so scary because it's like, oh, he might like kill them because he could. He's a man and they're prostitutes. If he killed them, it wouldn't be a problem. And it's so fucking scary. And what makes it so interesting is even as he is being so scary and vicious, like, there are line reads where he is on the verge of tears. And it's just like, okay, this is why you're so stupid, because you're a child. Like, you're a little kid.
You're both, like, evil and cruel, but also a baby at the same time.
Yes, like, he can only think of himself, and thus, if anything happens that is not that hurts him, he just, like, can't take it. Like, he can't think of, like, well, this, I need to take a lump here so that I win later, which Al does fucking constantly. He just can't take it.
Tolliver's thing is he's obsessed with optics. Like he has to be seen a certain way all the time.
Because he's got no confidence in himself. He has no core. He needs to feel in charge all the time. He needs to be the big man because he knows that he's deeply insecure. He needs his personal validation right away all the time.
And he legit does have insecurity towards Al insofar as Al is a camp father. I mean, like, he was there before him.
Yes. And, like, there are so many times where he's like, oh, I know, like, Al is, garnering solidarity and support from all corners of the town for this thing that he's doing. So my move is I'll do the opposite, and then I'll be better than Al. And it never fucking works out for him, and he gets lower and lower. At season 3, he really doesn't do much of anything, which is a shame because Powers Booth is incredible. Oh my god! Who else we got to talk about? We got to talk about the Doc fucking Cochran, Brad Dourif,
the voice of Chucky.
He's so good. It's one of the. I love when actors who, because of the way their face is shaped, are always cast as the freak. Oh, a scary freak, a weird monster man, barely human, more simian than man. Like, they finally get a role where they get to be like a normal guy, and it's just like, oh yes. And like Doc Cochran, the only doctor in town, is just like such a great character, and he does such a good job. He's so cantankerous.
He's very cantankerous. He's obviously driven by a sense of like social good because he's obviously vested in like the health of the camp, but he is also shady, I guess would be the word, because they're later when they're trying to legitimize and they're like, oh, you could run for office. He can't because he has like a warrant out for him for grave robbing.
The way it's delivered is so good because you don't see the scene. You see Seth Bullock and Saul Starr talking about the meeting later, and they're like, "Gosh, can't believe that about Doc. Who would have thought?" And Seth is just like, "Now, Saul, they do it for science. They cut him open so that they can learn about the body." And it's like, yeah, I understand that, but he could have said that instead of just saying, "I can't be health commissioner because of my arrest for grave robbing." And he's so content. Like, this comes up. You learn this eventually that he was a Civil War doctor, and he's
seen the worst stuff. Like, what are you doing there? Sawing through bones all day? It's probably the worst thing.
There's one part where he thinks that he is going to need to perform surgery, and he really, 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 really doesn't want to because he's just like, so there's like a 10% chance this is going to work. And like, as he's about to do it, he's just like shaking, and he just goes like, I cannot kill another man. And it's like, oh, when you were a Civil War doctor, you killed everyone. Like, no, it never worked because how could it? You're an army doctor in the old days. Like, you're in the worst situation possible and using oldie time medicine. So he's so fucked up. But like, he's also he's like a sweet, because again, despite how like cantankerous and scarred up he is, like, he's one of the few guys who just does want what's best for everyone. And like, he will go to anyone who needs him. And there are times when like someone's like, they're mistreating someone because of, I don't know, they're on the wrong side of some conflict, and he's just like, get the fuck out of my way. It's like, I need to do doctoring. He's great. as fictional doctors go, he's on the Mount Rushmore, in my opinion. He also wears little round glasses, which is always welcome.
Which are made for taking off to emphasize a point.
Yes. God, who's next? Who should we talk about next? I think
Let's do Jane. Let's do Jane because she's with the doctor. So,
yes.
You guys maybe know about Wild Bill Hickok, like the historical figure, the entertainer, all that stuff.
Yeah, gunman, Wild West man.
He is a character in this, and less so it's about him, but more so like the people that were attached to him.
Because like he shows up, and you think like, oh, this is going to be an important guy. And it's very clear that, like, oh, he didn't show up to Deadwood to, like, do things. He showed up to Deadwood so that he could commit very slow suicide. And, like...
Yes. And there are basically two key people that are with him that are just his friends and also, like, handlers. One of them is Jane, who is this very drunk woman who can only yell. Like, she's always, like, so drunk. I talk like fucking this. Like, it's just, like... it's just the definition of unladylike in like sort of like Victorian Wild West terms.
Yeah, she has a great sort of running gag, which is because she's drunk. She's constantly being found by people passed out, and they help her up. And she'll just say in the process of standing up, like, I farted, by the way. Who fucking cares? I don't care. Just let you know I farted.
Yeah, and she has a nice relationship with Doc because Doc's like, oh, you're like fucked up. And she's like, yeah, you're probably going to tell me to stop drinking. And he's like, oh, no, you should just do it off work. I drink all the time. You just have to, you have to just do it in like you have to have a plan.
Yeah. And like she's with the doc because like, despite the fact that she is constantly yelling and constantly drunk and like so many of the characters you described, when something is happening that she does not like, which is all the time, her way of reacting to that is I will just be so mean to everyone I see. Despite that, she does have a heart of gold. Doc can see that. And so like when there is the smallpox outbreak, which is not devastating because there's vaccines, but like some people still get it and they need tending to. Like she works at the fucking tent where they keep the sick people. And like this is sort of her thing the whole time. Like she was either drunk, yelling, screaming, and lying on the ground.
Or a caretaker.
Yes. And she's great. She's great. This is something that pisses me off. Is that like near the end of the series, there is the beginnings of she's gonna have a romance with Joni, who Joni also. So Joni's a great character, but of all the characters who do nothing in the plot, she really does the most nothing. Like in season 3, all she does is sit in an empty building and go, huh.
I wish this building had stuff in it.
And the fucking Jane and Joni romance is like, okay, they're gonna get to do something, and then the series fucking ends. Furious. Wild Bill's other friend, who is, man, talk about there's no role models for strong, non-toxic male masculinity. Yes, there is. Charlie Utter. Like you look up homie in the dictionary, you look up best friend, there's a picture of Charlie Utter, the nicest human being who ever lived.
When Charlie Utter tells you some bad news, you better believe he's holding his hat in his hand.
It's so funny. Not funny. It's just very, very interesting. So many times when Wild Bill is alive, Wild Bill in the show gets shot by a fucking rube, by a drunken idiot, just like he did in real life. But before that, so like Charlie believed it when Wild Bill said, I'm going to go to Deadwood and I'm going to prospect for gold. I'm sick of this rough and tumble life I've had. I want to settle down and put down roots and do real work. And he gets there, and Wild Bill spends all this time drinking and playing poker with a look on his face like he's about to burst into tears. And every once in a while, Charlie Utter will be like, gosh, Bill, you think you might want to do some prospecting today? And eventually Bill just has to be like, again, like, do you not understand that I'm committing a very slow suicide? Like, how have you
I'm not going to do any work. I just said that so I could get closer to these cards.
Yeah. And like, as the show goes on, talking about like the reason we said it was like a manga is that like like a manga, like a lot of manga artists are artists first and writers second. And so that they're focusing mostly on is I want to draw some cool stuff. Actually coming up with a plot and dialogue, that's not my strong suit. I'm focusing on another thing. The Deadwood sort of analog to that is like, I don't want to focus on plot. I want to focus on the dialogue. We've talked about that. You know, the plot is a tertiary concern. The main thing is language being beautiful and doing something amazing as you hear it. And so, as we said, the tournament is just like characters. Like, what have these two characters talked before? I bet if they did, it would sound really cool. And Charlie just becomes friends with everyone. Like, literally, Joni is just walking down the street. And he is outside because he has just opened up a freight company and it's his first day. And he's standing outside in a suit. And as she walks by, she says, I just opened a freight company today. And she stops and they have a conversation and become best friends.
You're underscoring how, like, both proud and scared he is when he does that. Like, he's, like, literally just like, I can't wait to tell someone.
And also he's so nervous because he bought a new frock coat. He's wearing, like, a nice suit. Like, before he was wearing, like, dusty prospector crap. And he's wearing a nice suit. And he's both so proud of his frock coat and also everyone who sees him in it, he's like, this looks ridiculous, doesn't it? Does this look good? Am I stupid? I'm like stupid for buying this, right? Oh gosh, I'm dumb. And like Jane constantly, you know, she's his best friend. She is, and like a mean person who's mean to everyone, to their best friend, she's most mean to him. Like she says truly unforgivable things about Charlie Utter, but like he is. Like, you could not write a more beautiful, perfect friend. Like, he's always there for her. And it's like, Jane, if you ever decide you want to take me up on this offer I'm making you, it's always there. He's always willing to help her when she's fucking too drunk. He's the best guy. Like, he really is the best guy. There is, in season 2, a fucking serial killer comes to town. Like, a true fucking psycho who does murders. Like he's
a geologist too, which is a pervert science because it's just for oil.
Yes. The oil of the old days, which was gold. They're sort of a piece. But like there is the worst man on earth is going to come to town and take up all the gold. Because he's a capitalist, and he sends his geologist to make sure that there is gold and buy a lot of claims before he gets there. And his geologist is, again, a fucking serial killer who ruins Joni's business by killing all the prostitutes. And she knows correctly, well, if I bring this up, if I, like, make a stink about this, Mr. Hurst, the guy, the man who hired the serial killer, will have me wiped out because he wants to protect his interests, and it's against his interest for his geologist to be arrested as a serial killer. So she kind of can't do anything. But she goes to Charlie Utter to tell him, like, Charlie, I've had a very bad day today. All of my friends were murdered by a fucking maniac, and now I don't have a business. What will I do? And so the next day, Charlie Utter is in line for Varnum's Ridiculous Restaurant, and he makes up an excuse like, you scuffed my shoe, sir. And the guy's like, I don't think I scuffed your shoe. And he just starts beating the shit out of him. And it's beautiful, because, like, so rarely in this show does someone who's, like, evil just get simple comeuppance. And Charlie Utter beats the shit out of this guy. He's like, gets him into the mud. He pushes him down. He like gets on top of him and starts like pounding on his face. And he's like, do you see now what it feels like to be helpless and have no one stick up for you? And it's just like, Charlie Utter, you were the greatest human being ever lived. Charlie Utter, I'll do anything for you, my homie. Do you want to go get burgers?
I love his business card. Charlie Utter Freight. What a good business.
Yeah. There's one part where I forget what the context is. But like, he misreads the situation, and he thinks it's more like friendly and jocular than it is, but like it's actually very serious. And they mention something about mail, and he's like, I don't mind telling you, we lose more letters than we deliver. And like he does like a laugh, and then he sees no one else is laughing, and he's like, oh.
Later, there's just some part where Jane is like lifting or something, and she's just like, fucking Charlie Utter Freight. It's just, wonderful stuff. Let's now talk about the Pinkertons and Mr. Hurst, because Mr. Hurst is kind of like Frieza in like the events of Dragon Ball, in the sense that like he represents the money and like the ultimate exploitation of the earth and everything there. And even though he's not there until the third season, his forces and machinations sort of wind down in the camp early on, like or immediately.
Yeah, I mean, like near the very beginning, Al sort of cottons on this. Like there is a storm coming. There are going to be interests coming who have more capital and more power than we can resist that are going to take this camp from us. We need to prepare for it. And in season 2, you obviously have Wolcott, who is Hearst's man, but also you already start to see the Pinkertons who are working for him, because there is a fucking undercover agent who like was hired to secretly be Alma's daughter's tutor, who the whole time was actually a Pinkerton agent doing evil.
And from the jump, Al is like, the Pinkertons are going to be here. It's going to suck when the Pinkertons show up. It's going to suck. Like, he's like, if this happens, the Pinkertons are going to come sniffing around. And that is when bad things happen. And he's correct.
There is the reason why he gets in good with Alma, despite all of the evil he has done to her, is when it is revealed that her daughter's tutor was an undercover Pinkerton agent. He's like, he calls her in. He's like, all right, I'm on your side now. Like, we're going to fuck this Pinkerton up. The reason being, I hate the fucking Pinkertons. The reason why, they work for the bosses, and they already have enough fucking advantages. And then, like, eventually, like, there's not just undercover guys. Like, when Hearst is starting to come, like, whole battalions of Pinkerton guys show up. They're still around, aren't they?
They not only are they still around, this isn't like one of those things where like they rebranded and like they have a different name now, and you can like go to Wikipedia and see like, oh, they used to be called this, and now no, they're like, there's subsidiaries of the Pinkertons, but like, do you remember the canine units that used to be on the L? Like it was the guys with the dogs. Those were Pinkertons. Like they were
Christ.
Those were under that umbrella, which is crazy because we're talking about the people that shot miners while they were striking in Wild West times. They're here.
When Hearst comes to town, so he buys up every single gold claim except Alma's, because Alma's gold claim is incredibly lucrative, and she won't sell.
This is the skyscraper from Yakuza thing. It's just like, we just need this one piece of land, and then I can have my ultimate dream.
But like when you see Hearst's mines working, it is so funny because every single scene is just there like a gaggle of fully nude Cornish men with their dicks flopping out, who are forced to like wash under crappy buckets of water, and have Hearst Pinkertons like open their assholes up to make sure they're not hiding any gold in there. And then one of them gets shot because he says the word union, and it's just like, man, oh man, this is the Pinkertons. I think the reason they can't change the name is because having it still be the Pinkertons sort of self-selects for the most evil men on earth. Because like, who's gonna apply for a job at the Pinkertons? Well, someone who's really gonna do a great job of evil. Jesus Christ, I love, who else? Mr. Hearst. Oh, I gotta talk about the actual character, because he does show up even after his Pinkerton people have been around for a long time. Mr. Hearst, when he first is there, so he's kind of gotten like an affable vibe to him. Like the previous villain, Wolcott, his geologist, as soon as he spoke, you're like, this is like one
evil.
Of the,
yeah, I'm clocking you as evil.
You're gonna slit a throat, my man. Like, I can just tell you love that. And he does. Hearst kind of seems like, I'm just like a friendly guy. Like when he meets people, when he's having his first scenes, he's like, nah, I'm not looking to cause any trouble in Deadwood. You know, the only thing I care about is the color, which is what he calls gold. It's like, all I care about is the color. I'm not going to get involved in any feuds or any politics. For me, as long as I can get the color and do it efficiently, well, that's all I need. And of course, you think, oh, well, maybe this is a change of pace. You think that, like, your lizard brain thinks that. Your intelligent brain knows that this is the season's antagonist. That won't be true. But, like, it's so, like, this, the thing about Hearst as a villain is that he is around today and won. Like, he won the election for president a couple of days ago. Like, he is here and he will never leave. And it is all the same. It's like, I don't care about politics. I'm just here to make a living for myself. And it's like, well, if you really think that, if that is the only thing you care about, that
is the most evil person, actually.
Like that is Satan. You're Satan. It means there is nothing you won't do. You are the fucking. You are what the Disco Elysium guy is talking about, where he says the mask slips and you see that the bourgeois are not human. That's
yeah. The mask has to be dropped for the killing. It has
and
to.
you
happen.
do have to kill.
Yeah, it will happen. So that's a lot of fucking people in this show. And that's not even everyone. Like, not even close. Not even close. But I cannot stress this enough. And there's not enough shows like this, I think, anymore, where you can truly say this is an ensemble show.
Mm-hmm.
What happens doesn't fucking matter because of the reasons Tom said. What matters is that and the guy who wrote this show basically did this as much. He saw the actors as wonderful action figures and Barbies that he could make smooch and fight. Mm-hmm. So the purpose of the show, and it's evidenced by this, is just like, these two people are going to have a conversation, and that's why it's happening. Doesn't matter. Like, he wanted to write this, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm. It's so good, dude. There's so many people we didn't talk. We didn't talk about the degenerate tit licker. We didn't talk about how Wyatt Earp and his brother Morgan show up, and they're just kind of shitty guys. And Seth is like, "Hey, fellas, you might want to consider moving along. We got enough shitty guys." And they're like, "Yeah, probably."
In the third season, especially, I don't know if this happened in the third season, but what you described happens, which is just like, yeah, I know you guys just got to town, but you better move it along. We can't really land this plane.
Yeah. I don't want to spend too long on this, but the newspaper man, who is a great character and a great performance, you kind of can't get around the fact that the actor is a known pedophile. He's on the sex offender registry, and it was known before they started filming. Not really sure how they got away with that. That actor has been in other stuff since. Not sure how he got away with that. I mean, like, I understand that, like, the temptation to be like, he is a great character actor. He was the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was the Emperor of Austria from Amadeus. Like, he can do the work, but, like, how come there's every scene with him, there is a vibe of just, like, I don't know how much
this shouldn't
I should
happen.
be enjoying this. Yeah.
Is this allowed?
Also, I just want to talk about Dan's fight. Can we talk about Dan's fight?
Yeah, the third season has a stand battle. The stands are Dan, which is Al's stand, and then Captain Turner, which is Mr. Hurst's stand. Captain Turner is like he's the mustache guy from Mythbusters.
Yeah, he looks like Jamie Mythbuster. He is Hearst's Dan. He is the one who's always standing next to him and who, when someone needs to be killed, does that. And they're fighting because Hearst wants to crush Al. He knows that Al is his biggest competition in the town for power and control, and he didn't really think very much of Al. He thinks he's a small-town rube who's up-jumped is the word. And he's like, I gotta crush him, and the way to do that is by killing his man and showing him that he is powerless before me. And so, like, they basically call him out. They're like, hey, Captain Turner goes up to Dan and is like, I know you're scared of me. And so you either have to fight or admit that you're scared of him, which is a defeat in itself. And so they have the stand battle. And they are sort of, when I say that he's Hearst's stand, like, they are the same shape. They're both like big, portly, barrel-chested 40-year-olds. So it looks evenly matched. And describe the fight.
Yeah, so there's a lot of killing in this show. There's a lot of violence. I guess what's different about this fight is that a lot of the violence in Deadwood is sudden. Someone gets their throat cut, something like that. This is a very drawn-out fight. It's two 40-year-old guys rolling around in the mud in the street. It's a very, like, laborious, like, slow grapple fight. Like, they are muddy and disgusting. And you actually can't really see what's happening because it's like there's two mud orbs trying to mount each other. But they're obviously, like, punching and kicking each other. And Dan is, like, literally about to just get suffocated. He's going to get choked out. And although, like, the specifics of what is happening is not super clear because of the mud, you could tell he's going to lose air and die. Mm-hmm. At which point, Dan fucking reaches in and pops out his eyeball. And man, oh man, he responds by going like, oh shit, my eye is out. I hate this. And then Dan grabs a log and beats him to death with it. And it takes a while. And I cannot stress enough that it's like this is happening in the street with everybody watching. It's just such a like barbaric spectacle.
How much watching? It literally is a stand battle, and that Al is up on his balcony looking down at this, and then across the street, the hotel, because Hearst bought the hotel from Farnham and immediately busted a bunch of holes in the wall, so he could join a bunch of rooms into one super room, which is where he lives, and then he busts a hole in the fucking exterior wall so we can get up on the balcony. So they're both like standing there, like 10 feet away from where this is all happening, and like also looking at each other. And when Joe says it takes a while to kill him with the log, that's because, well, it would take a while to do that, but also because
they're very tired.
Yeah, Dan can like barely lift the log. Like, it takes a lot of work for him to get this log over the head. And this is a fun fact I learned from W. Earl Brown's Reddit account. So the plot, the amount of plot was, so you and Captain Turner are going to fight. It's going to look like you're going to die. But right at the last second, through blind chance, I can't say but through random chance, you turn the tables and win. And that was, like, they didn't know what the fight was going to be. And, like, the fight choreography does not exist because, like, this is a real fight. And real fights do not have, like, martial art choreography.
It's sweaty guys rolling around until one of them runs out of air.
Exactly. And so the reason that the eye-popping shit occurs is because W. Earl Brown, the actor, in real life, is friends with Jerry Cantrell, the guitar player from Alice in Chains. And one time when they were hanging out, Jerry Cantrell told W. Earl Brown a story about something that happened to his brother David, where he was in a bar fight in a biker bar. And he was mounted on a pool table, and he was being beaten to shit out of, and he was getting strangled. And he's like, oh my God, I can see my vision closing in on me. I'm going to die right now. And he just starts flailing his arms at random, feels something squishy.
He got a critical.
Suddenly isn't getting strangled and looks and sees what he's done. And he pulled the eye out and it's hanging from the eye strings. And the guy's going, ah, my eye. And so the actor's just like, hey, how about I do that? And David Milch was like, oh, yes.
Yeah, and then hit him with a log.
Another fun fact is that I learned this from W. Earl Brown, saying fucking Deadwood facts on Reddit. The one time in the entire history of the show that David Milch made a decision that did not forefront dialogue and language was after Dan's had this fight. People are like, is he gonna die? Like, did he break? Did he like get a punctured lung? Like, what's gonna happen? Is he gonna recover? Is he gonna like internally bleed? Is he okay? What's happening? And like, nobody knows. Dan is just in another room and no one has any news. And at one point, Johnny, who is the comedy henchman, he like goes in to check on Dan. And originally there were pages of dialogue. There was gonna be Dan and Johnny talk, classic Deadwood. And W. Earl Brown was just like, I think it would be better if I just said nothing. And also was naked. And so he opens, what the scene is he opens the door, and there is Dan nude, sitting, looking at the corner, just like in a dark, dark room, like the fucking Blair Witch Project. And Johnny's like, you okay, Dan? No response. Like, you want to talk? No response. And like,
this is a fun anecdote because it's, to me, useful. Because, like, obviously what was chosen is correct. No dialogue. But it's funny that the person who wrote this fucking show, who I have nothing but respect for, like, was absolutely in the wrong on that front. Like, just no words needed.
Yeah. I mean, I see where he's coming from in that, like, it is easy for you to see the whole world as a nail when you have the greatest hammer on earth. And hammering things with your amazing hammer has given you nothing but W's your entire life. But man, yeah, this is why you got to have collaborators, because like, it's because the whole point of that is like, Dan's been a killer his whole life, but as you say, all of his kills have been by surprise. Like, he has never been in a fight, and he has never been in danger, and like, he knows, I did lose that fight. Like, I was gonna drown. The eye shit was I had zero agency in the eye shit. That just happened. So essentially, I did die.
Al is like, the problem with a fair fight is you see the light go out.
Yes.
In the other guy's eyes. When you kill, not that I know, but he's like, when you just kill someone, it's different. If it's a fair fight, you get to watch it go away slowly. And that's different.
Fucking Christ, what a great show. I love this fucking show. Talk about a character who does nothing. Brian Cox as the theater man shows up midway through season 3 and it's like, Al, my friend, I remember you from Virginia City. And he's like, Jack, I'm so glad you're here to be a theater man in Deadwood. And I'm like, I wonder what they're going to do with this character, because he does, he does the rounds that you do as a new Deadwood character. If he talks to this person,
you go to the hotel, you go to the restaurant.
You go to da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, I wonder what they're going to do with him. Nothing, because season 3 was the last season, and it got canceled for no fucking reason. And I'm so mad.
This enough. Tom is correct to be mad. I'm mad as well. Yes, it did get canceled. If you are going to watch this show and you haven't, and you should, because everything we're saying is correct, and we have immaculate taste, we are trendsetters, basically sort of a cultural gravity, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Just understand that, like, the first and second seasons, although obviously they end and there's stuff after, they end in a place that feels like, like the footing is correct. Like, yes, if there's nothing else, this is still kind of a bow on it. Fine. Yeah. The third season is literally just like, next time on Dragon Ball Z.
And then it's done. Like, the first 2 season finales, again, I don't feel like they would be satisfying series finales because there's a million threads that still aren't resolved. But it does feel like it is written to be a finale. It is meant to be like, and this is wrapping up this season. It's not wrapping up the show, but it's wrapping up this season. So if that were the series finale due to some awful circumstance, well, that would be very devastating. It would feel like a big loss, but there would still feel like there's like the flavor of conclusion in the air. The finale of season 3, which is the series fucking finale, Hearst has been fucking jockeying with Al this entire season, and he is a force unlike anything Al has ever fought before, because he has basically unlimited influence and unlimited money and unlimited muscle because of the fucking Pinkertons. And unlike any other villain in the show before, like, and he does admit this, Hearst says this on screen, he's just like, I hate Deadwood and I want to see it burn.
Yeah, this town sucks. Like, I'm not in on this project long term. I want it to be a crater that I've exploited and gotten a fat dollar from.
Like, I would love it if there was just no fucking town here and it was only my people getting me my gold.
My naked Cornishmen running around.
And, like, the big thing in the final couple episodes is, like, we just got new, like, this is one of the great things. It's like, Al is so evil, but, like, even the nicest, best people are like, he's like the good kind of evil, because, like, there is the comedy telegraph man, who is this, like, uptight Russian guy with a funny mustache who always follows the rules, and he's like, it is so important to be completely the telegraph is sacred. He eventually completely caves and tells Al every time a telegraph comes in for Hearst and gives it to him first, because he's like, he can tell what's going to happen to him and the people he loves and his life if Hearst has his way. And so the telegram comes in. Hearst is calling for, like, another fucking battalion of, like, essentially soldiers from the Pinkertons. Like, there's going to be a standing army occupying the town, and it's going to absolutely do everything that Hearst says. And so Al is scrambling to get guns, hire guns for himself. He knows that Mr. Wu, the Chinese guy, he has a bunch of guns, and he has men who will fight. And he's like, let's get him into town. We got to do everything we can to get him into town. And they get into town, and that's the end.
So there's a movie that they made 80 years later after everybody died. We have not watched it. Tom and I have not watched it for the same reason I have not watched, I think, the last season of Venture Brothers in the movie, because it's like, I don't want it to end. It's good. Yeah. It's like this. It's this cultural item in my life that I really like, and the fact that it's not done is something I've reckoned with. So now that there's a way for it to be done, I guess I'm hesitant because I just assume, I don't know. Even if I want it to be good, and I'm sure I will not dislike watching it, it's just I feel there is such a insurmountable loss of like creative momentum to just have 20 years of nothing between shooting the last season and the movie.
I could get behind the idea of a finale movie as like a fucking olive branch. It's like, okay, dude, you have one movie to do all your shit, okay? Be fucking quick about it. That I could get behind, but the fact that it was like a shot 20 years later is like, okay, well, there's no way.
Well, Powers Booth is dead, right? So there's that.
There's no fucking Cy. There's no Richardson. They're dead. But it's just like there's no way you're going to resolve the threads because these are threads that were following events that were occurring 20 years ago to these characters. Like, and they don't like hide it. Like, it's like 20 years later on Deadwood, and it's just like I fear that it cannot be anything other than like a reunion tour.
Yeah, it's a Wikipedia page for the show. You're like, yeah, this is. I cannot stress enough. Not saying it's going to be bad or anything. It is going to have to overcome a lot. Yeah, it's a challenge to make something with that much of it. I guess one advantage is that because everyone is shitty and dusty, the aging is like a more softer touch.
I don't know. I'm the thing that's coming back to my mind over and over is when the Replacements had their reunion tour in the mid 2010s, and I saw them at Riot Fest, and they were great. I can't say I didn't love it, but I loved it in the way that I probably would love watching the Deadwood movie. It being like, it's Al, it's Saul Starr, like it's Paul Westerberg, it's Bastards of Young, I just like I remember that. But then I recall how like, after they did the reunion tour, and even during it, like Paul Westerberg was like insanely depressed because it felt like to do this admits like the best years of my life are behind me. There's not like I have no future because the only thing people care about is my past. There was the big thing he wore T-shirts with one letter on them to a bunch of shows in a row, and if you put the letters in order, it says "I love you, but I must whore my past." It feels like that. Like there's no. And I know that there is a way, but it feels like I fear that there is no way that this movie is like an artistic, like we needed to do this. Like it's not just like, I bet it would pop to do a Deadwood thing again. Like, I don't know.
This is checking a box.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if it's checking a box. I'm happy to be wrong. But we've made stuff. I'm not saying I know how to make Deadwood, but I know that the longer you put in between things, you lose something. And that something could be the lives of the main characters.
Yep. The thing about Deadwood that makes me so fucking pissed off that it's gone. And like imagine if you watch The Sopranos, folks. Think about The Sopranos. Imagine if The Sopranos ended after season 3. Like, what a fucking... Like, think of how much was just taken from you in that imagined scenario. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's ridiculous. That's unthinkable. Seasons 4, 5, and 6 of The Sopranos are incredible. Like, without those, like, the show wouldn't fucking work. Like, it doesn't come together. I mean, it would work. It would still be great. But, like, it wouldn't be anywhere near as fucking good. And, like... It's so unfair, and it contributes to this feeling that I have that it feels like Deadwood is. It's like a show that doesn't come from Earth. It comes from. It's like it leaked in from the good timeline. Like there is a timeline where writing and language is still valued as an art form in itself. Beauty in language and dialogue is enough to carry a show that people like. And a show can be sort of like harsh and vulgar and beautiful and difficult. It's not difficult in that, again, it's not like Shakespearean. Like, you can understand what they're saying, but it is not second screenable. Like, you can't be playing fucking Subway Surfers while you're watching this.
That is so true. This is a non-second screenable game. Requires your focus, not in an overbearing way. It's just, it has to be the only screen.
It's like a good sort of way to put it would be, imagine if there was a show where, like, every time a character said a line, they did an incredible juggling move, and like the reason you watch the show is to see them juggle. And it's like, if you're looking at Subway Surfers on your phone and missing the juggling, it's like, that's like, well, that's it. Like, you're missing the whole thing. And similarly, like, if you can second screen like a sitcom, because like, I don't really need to follow the plot. The plots are so obvious, and they like show, like, you know how it's gonna go, and like, you're gonna hear the laugh line, and you're gonna hear that over the Subway Surfers and be like, ha ha ha, I remember that. No, like, Deadwood requires your full attention, and it really rewards you for it. It's so rich, it's so beautiful. I'm gonna read some fucking quotes just out of context. In life, you have to do a lot of things you don't fucking want to do. Many times, that's what the fuck life is. One vile fucking task after another. Ain't that true?
Yeah, that is stuck with me. That is always in the chamber. He's putting on his boots. Al is talking and putting on his boots as he says that. Life is one fucking vile task after another. It's hard to disagree with that.
Yep. Every fucking beating I'm grateful for. Every fucking one of them. Get all the trust beat out of you, and then you know what the fuck the world is. That's Al. God damn. This is George Hurst talking to Seth, the sheriff. Seth wishes to punish Hurst for doing incredible amounts of crime. Hurst knows that I cannot be punished. I'm a man of capital. And so he says, when I say go fuck yourself, Sheriff, will you put that down to drunkenness or a high estimate of your athleticism? God, that's good. I love these quotes. I'm just looking down. Oh, this is a good one. This is the one you were talking about. I think this is a good one to end on. This is the one that Al says to the newspaper man. After the newspaper man, who has been sort of like a neutral sort of figure of comedy among the camp. Like, everyone sort of realizes, like, this is kind of a kooky guy.
Yeah, he needs, like, a big funny brother, though. That's what he needs, is a big brother.
Yeah, and he has just, for the first time, been sort of touched by the politics of what's going on, because he's trying to be neutral in his newspaper, and the moneyed interests do not like that he did not take the moneyed interests side. So they beat him the fuck up.
They smashed the machine, yeah.
And so he's like, for the first time, is like, oh no, like, what? I'm not for the violent world. Like, what do I do? And he goes to Al, and he's like in despair, and he's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And Al says, pain or damage don't end the world, or despair, or fucking beatings. The world ends when you're dead. Until then, you got more punishment in store. Stand it like a man and give some back.
You should also mention how right before that line, the conversation starts with him hitting him, and he's like, what? And he's like, are you dead? And he's like, what? Are you fucking dead?
So good. And I mean, as much as he is like trying to like be a hard ass, later Al gets the Pinkerton who beat up the newspaper man in his office under the auspices of like, let's negotiate. Like I can't, like, there's no point in fighting you. Like, we gotta come to a compromise and and obviously wrong.
He just
Al
kills
starts
him,
beating
kills
the shit
out of him.
Yeah, and he's like absolutely destroying him, kick, you, blah, 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 blah. And as he's like on the ground screaming, Al's like, how many ribs you think you broke? And the guy is like touching his chest. He's like, I think 2 or 3. And he's like, I mean the fucking newspaper man's ribs, you asshole. And it's like, oh, you do care. You do care.
That's his way of caring.
Al. What a... Jesus. I want to watch Deadwood again. Deadwood is a show you can watch again.
Yes. Can I end with a final pitch just to reiterate kind of what we talked about here?
Mm-hmm.
I am a plot person. Like, I do like plot. I do like when, like, machinations move along. I think about just cause and effect. I like it. I'm the same reason I like fighting mangas, because it's like plot is the power-ups, all that shit happening, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I say all of that. And if you are a person who likes those things, this is a wonderful opportunity to throw that shit in a grave and just listen to dialogue. And I really do mean that. It is the point of the show. It is front and center. It is the price of admission. You might think, oh, it's a period piece because like that means like there's obviously a lot of good set. And there is. All that stuff is very good. It's very immersive. What matters is that you can put on this show for an hour and you're going to hear people say the most insane, awesome shit for an hour. Some of it will be old-timey slurs. Some of it will be meaningful and make you want to cry. And some of it will be about life. But
a lot of it will be current-day slurs. They say the N-word all the time. There's no hate to it. It's just like that's what you call those people. So be aware of that.
But it's just...
There is some hate to it occasionally. But there are nice people who say it with no venom. Sorry.
I can't think of anything that comes close to this. Like, I've obviously enjoyed TV shows and movies that have wonderful dialogue. But this thing where, like, the point of the show, the actual price of admission is just two people talking usually. Like, that's it. Like, the Wild West stuff doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Like, it was going to be about ancient Rome. You told me. I didn't know that.
This is so fucking... His original pitch to HBO was like, I would love to do a show that follows the interlinked lives, the day-to-day goings-ons of people living in ancient Rome. And they were like, okay, so that's crazy because we're working on the show called Rome. And well, I don't think we're going to do two. Are we going to do two? No. Okay, we're just going to do... Did you know about Deadwood?
Yeah, because you Wild West, and he's like, yeah, I can do Wild West. And then he made Deadwood.
So the fact that, like, this show wasn't even, like, his initial, like, downstrike, like, this was my idea. It's like, I wanted to actually do something else. This was my silver medal.
It's so good. It really, it just feels like something is leaking in from the good timeline. It's so special. I haven't been able to start another show since I finished it because it just feels like, what's the point?
It's an everything show. What I mean by that, I mean like it's like, you know how Bollywood is like you get all the emotions in the 3 hours. Like this is the same thing. When the show is funny, it is fucking funny in a way that isn't like oh, it's kind of funny. You know what I mean? Like it is funny in the way that like a really good writer is funny. Tom brought this up early on, and it's one of my favorites. Just of like kind of like what I mean when I say like it's funny on its own merits. It's just really well written. Is like. There's this episode where there's this piano that shows up, and like Al hates it because it's always playing like ragtime stuff, and he hates it. And like it's like a D plot, but the ongoing thing that keeps happening is just like every time he's trying to like, why did this fucking piano show up? And everyone's like, you told me if I didn't get this piano here as soon as possible, you would kick my ass. And it was just like him like having to live with like, I did this to myself.
Because it was when the Bella Union opened up and it was like a high-end saloon. He's like, oh my God, I have competition. We need a new piano now. And then it became clear later that like the Bella Union is not.
They are different audiences.
Yes. And he's also not a shrewd enough operator to threaten me. So when the piano shows up, he's like, what the fuck? Also, the piano shows up in like the middle of a meeting and he's like interrupted. He's like, why the fuck you interrupting me about a fucking piano? It's like, Al, you told me to tell you as soon as the piano got here, no matter what. It's like, well, why'd you buy it? Like, why didn't you wait a bit until we could figure out if we should? It's like, Al, you specifically countermanded against any delay, saying that you would kick my ass if I delayed. And just like all these reasons why, like, this happened, like every single thing that's bugging you is your orders being followed exactly, Al. And he's so mad.
This is an example of like what I think makes a good show. It's when there's just like, hey, we're making this weird, small, arbitrary choice for this character, and one of them is Johnny, the like dumb henchman. There's one episode where he just doesn't have a voice.
I forgot about that.
It doesn't matter why he doesn't have a voice, and it sounds stupid to say like, oh, this show is really good because like this guy couldn't talk because he didn't have a voice, but it's just like this very stupid spice that is going to play out in the background of all like the heavy hitting stuff.
I have said it before, and I'll say it again. This is one of my like top 5 writing advice things for all you creatives out there. If you want to have a piece of art that portrays the world in an accurate way, and it does not contain at least a few truly stupid things that are very funny, you are not Like, you have failed. You may be you don't want an accurate portrayal of the world, and you want it to be very dark and grim the entire way through and serious. However, if you are trying to accurately depict the world as it is, there is no situation that does not have dumb, funny shit going on all throughout. And Deadwood fucking does it. It does
it effortlessly. It just puts it's like a garnish. Okay, you have this really fun story, and then you have this very wonderful little spice on it. Like, it's funny, but it's not doing the thing I can't stand, which is like, oh, I'm winking, like, isn't this so clever? These scenarios that I've concocted does not feel like that. Everything feels very sleight of hand.
Talk about spice. Want to hear about spice? Let's talk about unauthorized cinnamon. There is a point where they have to have a meeting when Al's out of commission due to health reasons, and Jewel, who is the they call her the Gimp. She's a woman who I think she has MS.
Her legs, yeah, her legs are effectively different lengths.
Yeah, and also she can't talk completely normal. Al's constantly mean to her, but then it's revealed later. It's like, well, the reason she's here and pulls a check is because she's like his childhood friend.
Also,
anyway,
she is mean to him back, and he
oh God, yes. When he recovers from his illness and is walking around and he doesn't have full mobility yet, and she walks by and she goes, "He's always dragging that fucking leg everywhere he goes." He wants to get mad, but he's just like, fuck, I am dragging my leg. I do say that. Anyway, they have to have a meeting where there's no Al to do it. And Al always serves peaches, canned peaches. At one point, he has a meeting at the hardware store, and as he's leaving, he's just like, by the way, I serve refreshments at my meeting. So he had to put out peaches. And Jewel wants to put out cinnamon for the peaches. And Dan is like in such a fucking huff. He's like Al doesn't put out cinnamon. Like, I don't want to get in trouble for putting out cinnamon. It's like, what's wrong with putting out cinnamon? Why can't we put out cinnamon? Cinnamon's good on peaches. Like, what? Jewel, I don't want any unauthorized fucking cinnamon at the meeting. And like, it's very funny and very silly, but it's like real because like Dan is panicking. He is the muscle. He doesn't do this planning. He's afraid any decision I make that Al doesn't make could be the wrong one. And this cinnamon shit could be it. Like, it could. And it kind of is, because Harry Manning has a bunch of cinnamon on his peaches, and he's allergic to cinnamon, and he has a bunch of diarrhea. God, good show. Fuck. There's so many diarrhea bits. Like, at one point,
shitting for sure.
Al is beating up one of his henchmen who is a opium junkie because he has been compromised by Tolliver because Tolliver provided him with opium and he's been feeding Tolliver Al's secrets. So he's beating the shit out of him. And he has beaten his henchman down. He's on the ground going, and like Al goes to the window to sort of like brood or whatever. I don't know what. He's farther away though. And the henchman on the ground is just like, Al, you should know that I have shit myself. I mention it only so you know in advance and do not find out when the smell reaches you. So fucking funny. This guy is just like, if he discovers that I shit myself, he's going to be so mad. And
so I have to be a worm and just kind of cue up the information that I shit myself.
Like, I'm owning it. Like, I did shit, sir. There is shit in there.
I'm tired. We gotta wrap it up. You have to watch Deadwood.
If you don't watch Deadwood, I'll fucking kill you. Like, it is one of the great show. Like, it and The Sopranos, absolutely towering works. Like, it's amazing to think that it exists. Very different shows, but just so fucking good. You really owe it to yourself. Consider watching it with subtitles. And that's both because so you don't miss anything, and also because like you're basically hearing all the dialogue twice because you hear them say it and you're hearing it. I really want to second that.
I always have subtitles on anyway, just because I like to see the words written. For some reason that helps. But this is a show where you should do that. As dumb as this sounds, it's like, okay, yeah, like this was written and those are the words.
Yeah. I can't believe it took me so long to watch this. I can't believe I didn't watch this in college, but as Al Swearingen says, that's what you call a mistake of youth. That's all the time we have for Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, an Anime Sicko.
I've been Joe, an Anime Sicko.
Watch Deadwood. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Twitter at TomHarrison19. Joe is also a sicko. You can follow him on Twitter at ShariaUncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Twitter at Anime Sickos, or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.